Okay. Well, before our talk, Living on the Inner Edge, I'd like to talk about our global theme. At Centers for Spiritual Living, we have a global theme, and this year it is called, I love this, Open at the Top. And so I'm going to share with you something about myself. Actually, I'm going to share a lot about myself. I have some courage this morning. I was introduced to this concept about 30 years ago when I first walked through the doors of Church of Religious Science, which is now Centers for Spiritual Living. And in talks and in classes and in books, I kept hearing open at the top. And I'm a visual learner. I'm a visual person. I don't know if there's a lot of us out there, but if there is, you know what I'm talking about. Right away, I get a picture, and every time I hear open at the top, there's this picture in my head. So before I share mine, I'd like you to just take a second or two and think of open at the top as a visual, what you see. So for me, I see a stick figure. And it's not with a fine line, it's a big fat Sharpie, right? That big black stick figure. And it's holding, it's not holding, on its head is a box. So the head of the stick figure is this big box. And the big box has a flip top off to the side. I see this every time I hear open at the top. And in the box is coming all these lines and swirls and glitter-looking things. That's what I see. And so did anybody else see that? Now, well, whatever you saw, if you get a chance to ever sketch that out, I'm also the manager in the Youth and Family Program. Drop it off there. I'd love to see other visions of open at the top. And maybe I'll bring them to the conference when we go to the conference in Reno and share. Okay. Well, Ernest Holmes, our founder, describes open at the top as a means of cultivating curiosity, embracing doubt as part of our path, and trusting that new wisdom and greater illumination are always available if we're open to it. So he used this phrase and he popularized it because his vision was to make sure that what he was building, Ernest Holmes is our founder, and he was building Science of Mind, and he wanted to tie to his legacy and desire to prevent his teachings from becoming rigid, closed, and religious dogma. It wasn't closed. And so this is why we use that often in Science of Mind. And with this in mind, we are going to explore embracing and living on the inner edge. So in preparing for this talk, I asked several people, what does that mean? When you hear that, what does that mean to you, living on the inner edge? And I got some great responses, and I'm playing favorites. I'm going to use the one that my son gave when I asked him. So he said, well, I want to use his voice, I won't do it. Embracing your inner edge may have to do with the way that growing as a person requires being on the edge of your comfort zone. Without some discomfort, you will likely not experience growth. So he says, with that said, too much discomfort can also hinder growth, and it can become traumatic. So it's a practice of becoming aware of your mental discomfort and using it as an indication that there's growth, opportunity being presented. I just was so proud of that. I thought, yes, I'm going to share that one. So we all have an inner edge, the point where our self-perception, our self-judgment meets the deeper truth of who we are. And sometimes, often, that edge feels like friction. Self-criticism, self-doubt, that self-judgment. the self-judgment of not being enough. So, what if we approached the edge not as a failing, but as an invitation, as an open door, a doorway, a growth opportunity, as Tayton would say, my son. So, can we learn to hold curiosity and compassion for ourselves where that judgment once lived? R.Sc.P encourages us to stretch beyond what is comfortable and embody a spirituality that grows, it questions, and evolves with us in the world. So the edge is not a limit. It can be a doorway. And as we journey inward to the doorstep of transformation, we ask ourselves, what am I being invited to stretch beyond the self-judgment and deeper into acceptance? I'm going to say that again. We ask ourselves, what am I being invited to stretch beyond that self-judgment into deeper self-acceptance? So I'm going to use a little courage here and share a story of myself, a time of transformation. So as a teenager, I was the poster child of self-doubt, self-criticism, judgment. Oh my goodness. I was not enough in those years. And I don't remember looking too deeply into this, as many teenagers don't look too deeply into this. And so what I did is I distracted myself. And I chose to numb myself. Those of us that grew up in the 70s know, right? There was a lot of numbing that we could do. And that took care of that. We didn't have to hang out on that inner edge. So sadly, that became my comfort zone. And also in the 70s, we had MTV. So I had MTV in the background day and night, music videos. And for whatever reason, one afternoon, instead of a music video, I turned and it was a documentary. They were starting to show documentaries. And this documentary was about some young men that were climbing Mount Everest. And it grabbed my attention, and I thought, well, why would you do that? How can you numb up there? No, I didn't think that. But why would you do that? Why would you climb Mount Everest? So I became really interested and started to watch this. So, those of us that know anything about climbing is it takes, especially Mount Everest, it could take days, weeks, months. It takes a long time. And in between ascending and descending, there's these different camps that the climbers will stay at. And in those camps, they will sleep, eat, rest. A lot of times they actually need to come back so that their bodies and their lungs can become acclimated to that thinning air. So there's certain documentary, the climbers come back down, they set up their tents at one of these base camps, and there's just 2 of them, and they go to sleep, and they sleep through the night. Early in the morning, here comes the camera crew, and they're like, ooh, let's see how these 2 are doing. They're mischievous. If I remember right, they were pretty mischievous. So let's see how these 2 climbers are doing early this morning. And I'm just going to use the names Jack and Sam. I'm not sure that was their names, but I'll remember it that way. So tent number 1, the camera crew comes, tap, tap, tap on the first tent. Good morning, Jack. Time to rise and shine. And we see a little fumbling on the frozen zipper, and finally it comes down. And here comes Jack's face. And he says, what the bleep, bleep, bleep are you doing? Bleep, bleep, bleep. When we used to bleep those words back in the day, that was a bunch of bleeping. Ooh, camera crew says, let's let Jack be. I think he needs to wake up. Let's go see how Sam is doing. Tap, tap on the tent. Good morning, Sam. Time to rise and shine. More fumbling. Here comes the zipper. Sam's face. Wow! He's lit up. Wow, look where I am. I think I've gone to heaven. And he's just like blown away. And that was my transformation because I am a visual learner. And I saw my inner edge, where I lived in that discomfort and where I was. And then I saw Sam, and I saw my truth, the truth of who I am. I am whole. I am love. I am enough. And that was a life-changing experience. You can call me Sam. So, my life flashed in front of me, and with the discomfort, the self-criticism, tent number 1, I could now move to tent number 2 into my perfection, into my truth, into who I really am. So I began exploring the edges of my inner world, and I saw a doorway. I saw an opportunity for growth. And isn't it interesting that these 2 men do not know that they changed my life? I think of that. How many times do we do something and we don't even know that it has been a life-changing experience for somebody else, good or bad? And I call that living with grace. When we're living with grace, I call that being a blessing. And so Jack was a blessing to me, as is Sam a blessing to me. Okay, the story comes from over 50 years ago, and so now I stand here reminding myself and reminding us to push those boundaries of our comfort zone. Once we can lose self-judgment, we can open up to that truth, the truth of our perfection and our purpose. Rumi. Follow your heart to discern the hidden mystery, where roses bloom and streams of devotion flow. Streams of devotion, love, loyalty, for an activity or for a cause. The deeper truth of who we are, the doorway, the zipper, will present itself. We don't have this month's book, The Journey, The Inward Journey by Howard Thurman. It'll be here Wednesday. And I hope we have enough because I think we're all going to want, it's an amazing book. But he talks about distinguishing between the self and the non-self. This is out of his book. There are moments of enthusiasm when, with mounting excitement, we absorb ourselves in something beyond ourselves. Okay, but after this happens, we fight at length to get back home, to come again to that familiar place, to be secure in our boundaries. Again and again, the process repeats itself, wearing down the walls that shut us in. So, as with all of life, it's a practice. I wasn't transformed that day. I've had other days of self-judgment and self-criticism and thinking I'm not enough. That wasn't. So I continue that practice of stretching beyond the old judgments and into a new awareness. Over and over, I'm wearing down those walls that shut me in. So in his book, he describes this as a cycle of expansion and return. We stretch into something beyond ourselves, then we scramble back to the familiar. Does that sound familiar? Living on the inner edge means being willing to stay in that in-between space a little longer. Knowing that the walls that once kept us safe may now be the very walls keeping us small. I think of the work of the late William Bridges. We have this book on transitions. We have quite a few actually in here. This book has been another life-changing thing for me. His work on transitions talks about transformation, right? With the transition comes the transformation. And he has a 3-part cycle. So when we are transforming or transitioning, we start with an end. That sounds different, right? We start with an end to get to a new beginning. So I needed to end tent number 1. I'm just going to use that as the placeholder here. We need to end something in order for something else to be. But in his 3-part cycle, in the middle, he calls it the neutral zone. It's a very important part of that 3-point cycle. He says, first there's an ending, then a beginning, and an important empty or fallow time in between. Fallow is a term that farmers use. Fallow is what we see in nature. It's the order of things in nature. So he says, leaf, fall, winter, and then green emerges again from the dry brown wood. Sometimes the inner edge feels like an uncomfortable space where you are doing the work, holding the faith, we're speaking the affirmations, we're doing this. But then the physical world isn't showing any evidence of change, right? And many people give up at this stage where they're not seeing that change. So because I love stories, I have another story to attach to this. It's called The Farmer and the Bamboo. And this is a story that Eric Butterworth really likes the metaphor that comes through this. So, a farmer plants a seed of a Chinese bamboo tree. He waters it and he tends to it faithfully for 1 year. But nothing happens. There's no sprout, no sign of life, no leaf. He continues for a 2nd year. He waters for a 3rd year. He continues for a 4th year. Still, the ground remains as bare as the first day. However, the 5th year, the bamboo suddenly bursts through the soil, and it grows 80 feet in 6 weeks. Who knows this about bamboo? I know this about bamboo, okay? 80 feet in 6 weeks. This happens. So here's my question. Did the bamboo grow 80 feet in 6 weeks or in 5 years? Anyone want a jab at that one? 5 years, yes. Because during those empty years, during that fallow time, it was growing this massive invisible root system in order to support it. So there it is. There it is. So, living on the inner edge. We must be willing to pause, willing to stretch. It's a time of introspection. Take a moment now for that introspection. And know you're in the fallow right now. Carl Jung. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. Recently, I heard Reverend Ed Bacon was asked, how do you describe spirituality? His answer was, spirituality is the connection to the deeper self. So what do I visualize? A thick Sharpie again. This thick Sharpie makes a bridge connecting that inner edge to the doorway of truth. And so it is. And now Marina will come and play another song for us, please.